Hey everybody, how's it going? I am your host Adrian, coming to you almost live from lovely Phoenix, Arizona, here in Studio MC1 at QuickSurf Internet Studios. Linux News Log is a proud member of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. Do feel free to head on over to techpodcast.com and check out all the other technology-related shows over there. I'd like to encourage everybody to visit us online at quicksurf.com and check out the show notes. Everything we've talked about is linked up in the show notes. And subscribe to the show if you have not already done so. The links to do that are also there. Or if you're on YouTube, you can subscribe on YouTube as well. And with that, let's go ahead and get into the stories for this episode. Starting off over at PC World, Suse Linux outlines its plans for Windows 8 secure boot. Now, last week we talked about what Red Hat was planning to do, and this week Suse has something similar to what they are going to do. They comment that the UEFI secure boot is a useful technology which makes it harder for attackers to hide a rootkit in the boot chain. Says Olaf Kirch. He's the director of the Suse Linux Enterprise Department in Suse Engineering. But at the same time, already the basics of operation, which is establishing a single root of trust, conflict with the principles of open source development, which must be independent and distributed to work. So he says that there are two ways of working around those restrictions. One is to work with hardware vendors to have them endorse a Suse key, which they then sign with the bootloader. Or the other way is to go through Microsoft's Windows Logo Certification Program to have the bootloader certified and have Microsoft recognize their signing key. Now, Suse plans to use the shim loader originally developed by Fedora. It's a smart solution which avoids several nasty legal issues, says Kirch, and it simplifies the certification/signing step considerably. The shim loader will load the Grub2 bootloader, verify it, and then load kernels signed by a Suse key. This allows them to have more than one key possible, so they could have a Suse key, and they could also have what they call a machine key. Let's see, I just lost what I was going to say. MOKs, which is a machine owner key. And so if you want to do your own thing, then you can have a machine owner key and get that into the key store that they have here. And they have a nice diagram of how it would work. There's a key database and a machine owner key list that the shim uses to authenticate whatever kernel they're going to use. So pretty interesting. Definitely check it out if you're interested in doing Linux bootloader development or anything of that nature. Things are getting interesting with Windows 8 because Microsoft is making hardware vendors change how they're doing stuff. From Liliputing, Reason UltraLap 430 is the first Ultrabook to ship with Linux. I think this is debatable, but still this is a pretty neat little computer. Linux computer builder Reason is launching a thin and light laptop called the UltraLap 430, which has all the specs you'd expect from a modern Ultrabook. But what sets it apart from pretty much every other Ultrabook on the market is the fact that the UltraLap 430 is shipping with a Linux-based operating system rather than Windows. It starts at $899, and you can buy it directly from the Reason store. It's 14.1-inch display. You get two USB 3.0 ports, a USB 2.0 port, HDMI out, SD card slot, Ethernet, and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. It's 13.5 by 9.25 by 0.75, and it weighs 3.5 pounds, so it's right in there in MacBook Air territory, and you can run Linux on it. Awesome. From Wired.com, we have yet another SCO story. Hopefully this will be, and I keep saying this, hopefully this will be among the last of the SCO stories. Hopefully SCO after this dies a slow, painful death, and we don't ever have to hear about this ever again. I'm hoping. Linux copyright troll SCO files for a double secret bankruptcy. This is over at Wired.com in their enterprise section. SCO Group, the company behind a number of lawsuits relating to Linux, has filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, a step beyond the more common Chapter 11 bankruptcy status. It's not the end of the road for the much-hated company, but it's close. So what does this actually mean? Well, they already filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2007. Chapter 7 is like a double secret bankruptcy. Chapter 11 means you're trying to reorganize and survive as a corporate entity. Chapter 7 means you've given up the ghost and are shutting down. Now, that's how it usually works, as the Wired article points out. But SCO Group will continue to exist so that it can press on with litigation. I hope they just die. No one who SCO owes money is going to be paid. So, it's like, give it up already. And I said this last time we had a SCO story. SCO, give it up already. You're killing us here. And not in a good way. From internetnews.com, the Linux Foundation is heading to Korea thanks to Samsung. The Linux Foundation is bringing Linus Torvalds to South Korea. Torvalds will be a key speaker at the inaugural Korea Linux Forum, which is set to occur October 11th to 12th in Seoul, South Korea. Pretty interesting. Samsung is a platinum member of the Linux Foundation and is actively engaged in Linux efforts, and they want Linus Torvalds there because, according to Samsung, Korea is a hotbed of new Linux development, especially in the mobile and embedded areas. Said executive director of the Linux Foundation. The Korea Linux Forum will help bridge the amazing work being done in the country with the global Linux community. Isn't that nice? So we'll see what happens with that and how it goes. Could be interesting. From Linux.com, ZipWhip releases cloud texting app for Linux desktop. This is pretty neat. I thought this was pretty neat. The company that introduced the Texpresso machine to the world has now released its desktop cloud texting application for Linux, similar to iCloud in OS X and on iPhones and iPads and iPod Touches and all that other goodness. ZipWhip's Android app, which sends text messages to and from your desktop or tablet via the cloud, is now available on Ubuntu and Mint, as well as Windows and OS X. ZipWhip first caught our attention in April by building an espresso machine that blah, 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 blah. Okay, so anyway, this will be pretty interesting. It's basically a competitor to iMessage that you'd expect to see on OS X. There are a couple of other iMessage type messaging schemes out there. My app, I believe, is one of them. That I've recently had to use because I have a family member that refuses to use iOS and doesn't want to pay for text messages, and so has this weird app that he has on his Android phone. And so I unfortunately am being forced to use it, but still, nonetheless, pretty interesting. From ZDNet, does the Surface Spat open the door for Linux? I don't know. Let's find out. So one of the big PC makers has come out and said it. According to Acer, Microsoft's hardware play with the Surface risks alienating the manufacturers that have been instrumental in the success of Windows. It will create a huge negative impact for the ecosystem, and other brands may take a negative reaction, Acer's J.T. Wang was quoted as saying on Monday, while another top executive at the company said Acer was considering whether to find alternatives to the industry standard operating system. Fighting words, however, they are words that came just after Microsoft admitted it was aware of this risk. Yikes, Microsoft, do it. No, just kidding. But what is the alternative to Windows, really? And that's, again, if you're in the business world, Windows is kind of it right now. Android, with the Nexus 7, Google is doing much the same thing as Microsoft by pushing its own brand on the hardware side. Moreover, Acer is one major manufacturer of Android tablets that actually is seeing its shipments and market share fall. Apple, they don't license their operating systems to other manufacturers, so that leaves non-Android Linux distributions, most likely given its relative popularity in stated tablet plans. Ubuntu, or maybe OpenWebOS. They're being put in a tough position. Ultimately, Microsoft either needs to tread more lightly to preserve that relationship, or we're going to have a whole pile of tablet computers that suck because manufacturers have to actually do the operating system, or they will just simply not do tablet computers, which won't do anything but cement Apple's lead in the tablet marketplace. What a mess. Anyway, that will do it for this episode of Linux News Log. As always, if you have anything you want to send to me, linux@quicksurf.com. Visit us on the web, quicksurf.com, and subscribe to the show if you have not already done so. And I will see all of you next week. See you then. Bye.